Now, when we talk about some of the other types of scenarios we have, let's say, for example, a cup of coffee. Now, for cups of coffee, we're not buying cups of coffee and selling cups of coffee. We're actually buying the raw ingredients, which would be the coffee beans, maybe creamer, sugar, maybe the actual cup that the coffee goes in. And we're buying all these raw ingredients, and then we're putting those together to make the final product, which is a cup of coffee. When we're talking about that, what we're talking about is recipe ingredient tracking, because obviously those raw materials, those raw ingredients that we're using to build everything, those are what we're concerned about for our inventory stock levels. So for ingredient tracking, it's really a good idea if we start out by creating an ingredient department, kind of like we did with mods and modifiers. We don't want them to clutter up the main screen and be something that confuses the cashiers. So let's start off by going to the department maintenance, and we're going to add a department called ingredients. And let's save that. And we're going to say no to creating any additional departments at this time. Let's exit and let's go to the vendor maintenance screen, where we can set up a couple of vendors, one for our coffee beans supplier and one for the supplier that supplies our coffee cups. Let's click on vendor maintenance and let's click add down here, and we're going to make our first supplier. This is going to be Coffee Inc. And let's save that, and we're going to add our other supplier, which is going to be Supply Co. We're going to use them to supply our coffee cups. And click Save. We're going to say no because we're not going to add any additional vendors at this time. And let's click Exit back to the main control panel. Next, let's go into the inventory maintenance screen, and we're going to add our raw ingredients that we're going to be tracking. So let's click Add Item, and we're going to pick Standard Item, and let's go ahead and file this new item, which is going to be our coffee beans, in the ingredients department. All right, so we're not going to put a price and a cost in here because we're not going to be selling this item directly to our customer base. We're more concerned with the ordering info. So let's go to the ordering info tab here, and let's click Add Pricing from a vendor. We're going to pick our Coffee Inc. vendor. Click Enter here. And this is where it's pretty important for us to understand the units of measure that we're going to be using to track our coffee beans. Now, since we're selling coffee by the cup, we need to figure out what the units of beans are that go into a single cup of coffee. And we have two sizes, 8 ounce and 12 ounce. So we're probably going to be talking about coffee beans by the ounce. Now, that's the first part, and the second part is the fact that we're probably not buying coffee beans by the ounce. We're probably buying them by the pound. So we have a relationship between ounces and pounds that we need to deal with. Now, as with everything else that we're tracking, you're always going to track by the smallest unit, which is going to be ounces in this case. We're going to say, for the sake of example, that we have 3 ounces of coffee beans that actually goes into a single cup of coffee, and we're going to say that we have 5 ounces of coffee beans that goes into a 12-ounce coffee drink. So if we want to start off just by saying that we have a single, let's say also that we're going to buy the coffee in a 5-pound container, and that's our bulk buy that we're going to buy from our coffee bean supplier. So if we're going to buy a 5-pound container, then we need to actually convert that to ounces for the number that we have in stock, since we're going to be depleting stock by ounces, not pounds. So let's go ahead and just pull up our calculator real quick just to understand how we're doing this. And if we're going to have 5 pounds, we're going to multiply that by 16 ounces per pound, and that's going to give us a total of 80 ounces in a case or in a pack unit that we're buying. So in order for us to say that we have 1 case or 1 pack on hand of the coffee, we're going to go ahead and put the number in stock equal to 80. And you'll notice I pointed out earlier that we're using the instant PO to update the number in stock. When we're first creating the item, we do have an opportunity to set this level if we do it from the start before we use the instant PO feature. Now that we've done that, let's talk about what our reorder levels and reorder quantities are going to be for this. Now, if we want to keep at least 1 case or pack in inventory at a single time, then our reorder level is going to be 1 case. which is going to be 80 ounces. And the reorder quantity, if we want to reorder 3 packs or cases at a time, then we're going to do 3 times 80 to get the right number. That's going to be 240 ounces. Now, obviously, our supplier is not going to sell us 240 ounces of coffee. They're going to sell us 15 pounds. So we're going to go down here and fill in our case relationship. And let's say per pound, we're paying $10. All right, this is a splice in from the last video at 4 minutes, 31.5 seconds. So in order to calculate the cost per, we're not dealing with the cost per pound, we're dealing with the cost per ounce, which is the units that we're tracking in here. Let's figure that out. So if the cost per pound is $10, and we're dividing this by 16 ounces, then our cost per ounce is going to be 0.625. or 63 cents roughly. Now the case cost, if we're doing $10 per pound, is going to be $50 for a 5-pound case. Again, the number in the case is going to be equal to 80. Okay, so once we've got this whole relationship set up, let's go ahead and save it before we make any adjustments and say no that we're not going to add anything else. And we can go back here and just see that all the settings that we've just made are still retained on the coffee bean ingredient. Now the next step here is that whenever we sell an 8-ounce coffee or a 12-ounce coffee, we need to deduct a certain number of coffee beans. And we said that for the 8-ounce drink, we're going to deduct 3 ounces of coffee beans. For the 12-ounce drink, we're going to deduct 5 ounces of coffee beans. So let's talk about how we do that. We're going to go look up these 2 size items. Now, keep in mind that these items that we dealt with that were sizes, they're actually modifiers. So I'm going to go hunt them down from the modifiers list right here. And let's go ahead and pick the 8-ounce cafe latte. Now, the way that we make a relationship between this modifier, and keep in mind that it may be the modifier that's deducting the inventory for the ingredients, or it could actually be a standard item either way. In this case, it just happened to land on a modifier that we're dealing with. At any rate, in order to make this relationship between this particular modifier and the coffee bean ingredient, we're going to go to the Recipe tab. And this allows us to make that relationship. And we're going to click Add Ingredient, and we're going to go looking for our beans. There's our coffee beans. I'm going to click on that relationship, and it's going to ask me to enter the quantity. Now, what it's asking for is what quantity of coffee beans are being deducted every time I sell an 8-ounce latte. So here again, we had already said that we're going to use 3 ounces. Now, since my units that I'm working in are 3 ounces, are already in ounces, when I put 3, the system just inherently knows, okay, we're dealing with ounces here, so that's what I'm going to do. Click OK, and it's going to ask us for a yield percentage, which we're always going to leave at 0. If you have an item and there's waste involved during the transfer process, then we could assign a waste percentage, 25%, 50% waste, 90% waste, so on and so forth. But we're going to set that to 0 for our situation here and click OK. Now we've made a relationship between the 8-ounce latte and coffee beans. We're going to go ahead and save this, and we need to actually make another relationship between the 12-ounce cafe latte and the coffee beans. So let's find our 12-ounce. We're going to go to Recipe. We're going to add an ingredient here again. We're going to go look for our beans. All right, and this time, instead of 3 ounces, we're going to be deducting 5 ounces when we sell a 12-ounce latte. Yield percentage will still be 0, and we can save this item. All right, so we've effectively built the inventory ingredients, and we've made a relationship between the coffee itself and the inventory. So, but what if we actually want to also deduct inventory on our cups so that we can know when we need to reorder cups? Well, we need to go through the same process again to set up the relationship between our coffee drink and the cups that are being depleted from inventory. To do that, let's click Add again. We're going to make another standard item, and it's going to go in the ingredients list again, and it's going to be cups. In fact, we might even have an 8-ounce cup and a 12-ounce cup. So in this example, let's just use 8-ounce cup. All right, here again, we're not going to assign a price and a cost because we're not selling these to the general public. But for our example, let's say that we buy cups in a pack of 50 for these 8-ounce cups. So let's go ahead and start out by saying we have one pack and we have 50 of them in stock. Now we need to go back to the Ordering Info tab, and we're going to attach a vendor for our cups since we're ordering them as well, and it's going to be our supply co. We're going to click enter and bypass the vendor part number, and we want to look here again at our reorder level, reorder quantity, and our case relationship. So let's say that our reorder level is going to be one case, which is 50 cups, and our reorder quantity, let's say that we're going to reorder one case when we get down to only having one case left, so we're going to put 50 in here. Now the cost per we're going to back figure in this situation. Let's say that the case cost on these is $10 for a pack of 50 cups. Then let's go over here and calculate. If we have $10 for a case of 50, then the individual cup price is going to be 20 cents. So we'll put on our cost 20 cents per, and we'll put in the number in the case here is 50. So now we're all set up here, and we are going to make sure just once again that we did set this to count this item because this is our cup item. This is actually depleting from inventory, and let's go ahead and click save. Now the next step here is that we go back to our coffee item again. Actually, we're going to go back to our modifier item, which is the 8-ounce cafe latte, and let's select that. And what we're doing is that whenever this 8-ounce modifier is selected, it's going to take one of those 8-ounce cups from inventory. So to make that happen, we're going to go back to recipe, and we see that we already have the coffee beans assigned here, and we're going to click add ingredient. Now let's go to our ingredients group here and filter, and let's select our 8-ounce coffee cup. We're going to say that one 8-ounce coffee comes out of inventory for each cup of 8-ounce cafe latte that we sell. The yield percentage is 0, and we're all connected. So it shows here in the recipe that whenever I sell an 8-ounce latte, when I pick the 8-ounce modifier for a cafe latte, it's going to take 3 ounces of coffee beans in one coffee cup. Now we just need to do this same process one more time. For the 12-ounce coffee cup, if we want to actually have that one deplete from inventory as well. So let's just go ahead and do that, just to be complete here. And what we'll do is we'll just start off searching for our 8-ounce cup, and just to make it simple, I'm going to duplicate this item instead of making it from scratch, and I'll just call this a 12-ounce coffee cup. I'm going to keep the costing information the same and all of the case information the same, and just go ahead and build it for now. Now let's go on back to our modifiers again, and we're going to find our 12-ounce cafe latte, and we're going to connect the recipe on it. Now it's taking out 5 ounces of coffee beans, and it's still going to take out 1 coffee cup. There we go. Let's put in a quantity of 1, yield percentage 0, and now we're all programmed. So at this point, we've programmed the bagels to deplete from direct inventory, and we've programmed the 8-ounce and the 12-ounce latte to deplete coffee beans and coffee cups according to how much quantity we're really pulling out of our ingredients. So let's go check our work and see how well things are going. Let's exit out to the, actually back here to the inventory maintenance screen is where we want to stay. Let's click lookup, and let's look at some of those ingredients that we just created and look at the current stock level. So if I click on my ingredients department, I'll see that I have 80 ounces of beans in stock. I have 50 of the 8-ounce cups, and I have 50 of the 12-ounce cups. Now what we should see, if we've done this correctly, is we should see the appropriate depletion of these stock items when we sell a cup of coffee. So if we sell an 8-ounce cup of coffee, we'll see 1 cup depleted. If we sell a 12-ounce cup of coffee, we should see 1 of the 12-ounce cups depleted. And a total of 8 ounces, that's 3 ounces for the 8-ounce coffee and 5 ounces for the 12-ounce coffee depleted from the coffee beans, so that we should end up with 72 ounces left in stock. So let's go ahead and cancel this and exit out to the main screen. And let's go ahead and make a sale on one of each type of coffee and test our math, make sure that the recipes are pulling correctly. We're going to go ahead and pay these to cash. Let's go back to the manager, inventory maintenance screen here, and we're going to look up our ingredients. And everything looks to be correct.